So in this video, we're going to talk about the significant figure, and we're talking about the rules for calculation. And specifically, we're going to talk about the multiplication rule, the division rule, and also the addition and subtraction rule. Now, when we talk about the multiplication and addition rule, it says that the results carry the same number of significant figures as the factor with the fewest significant figures. So, what does that mean? Well, let's take, for example, if I take 1.05, 1.052 and I multiply that by 12.504 and I also multiply that by 0.53. Okay, well, to me, we know sig fig rules, and we know this has 4 sig figs, so this has 4 sig figs. Okay, this looks to me that it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so this has 5 sig figs, and this has, remember, this is a leading zero, and so anything after this non-zero here number will actually be counted sig figs, and so this actually has 2 sig figs. Okay, and the idea is that if I take this and plug this in my calculator, if I multiply these numbers in my calculator, I shall get 6.7208. Okay, so this is a number that I get. Okay, the idea that you use the fewest significant digits, well, in this case, the fewest significant digits in this calculation happens to be 2 sig figs. And so this rule says that my answer will actually have 2 sig figs. Now, if I round this up, if I round this up to 2 sig figs, my answer should be 6.7. Okay, so that's the general gist behind multiplication. Whatever you're multiplying, the answer is going to be with the lowest, the figure with the lowest sig figs. That's the amount of sig figs that your answer will contain. Okay, and it's the same thing for division. So what if I take 2.0035 and I divide this by 3.20? Well, hopefully we can see by now this has actually 5 sig figs. Okay, all these figures are significant. So this has 5 sig figs. Okay, this looks to me that it has 3 sig figs. Okay, and the idea is that if I take 2.0035 and divide it by 3.20, I shall get 0.626094. Well, because the multiplication division rule says that the figure that contains the lowest sig figs, that's the amount of sig figs that my answer should be in. So in this case, I had 3 sig figs, which will be the lowest out of these two. So therefore, my answer shall be 0.626. Okay, and you can see this is 3 sig figs. Okay, so this is 3 sig figs. So again, in terms of multiplying and dividing, whatever figure has the lowest sig figs, that's the amount of sig figs that your answer should be in, as simple as possible. Okay, now let's talk a little bit more about the addition rule and subtraction rule. Okay, and this rule, in this case, let me write it. So the result actually carries the same number of decimal places as the quantity with the fewest decimal places. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, let's look at an example. What if I take 2.345 and I add this to 0.07, and maybe I should add 3 numbers together. So let's do 2.9975. Okay, let's say we draw a line and we're adding these. Okay, what this rule says is that the amount of significant figures that you should have will correspond to the quantity with the fewest decimal places. And so what I usually do is draw a line. Okay, what I usually do is draw a line. Okay, so What does that mean? Well, the quantity that has the fewest decimal places after the decimal point, that's where I'm going to draw my line. And so if I look, here I have 3 places after the decimal point. Here I have 4. Here I only have 2. And so right after this, I'm just going to draw a line. Okay, I'm going to draw a line. Right after the number with the fewest decimal places. And so when I add these together, I would actually get 5.4125. Okay, well, notice that my line cuts off this 25 here. And so my answer, in fact, will only be 5.41. Okay, so it turns out that whatever number has the fewest, whatever figure has the fewest decimal point, after that fewest decimal point, after that last number, you're going to draw a line there. And let's look at it in a subtraction one to kind of get the point across. Okay, so what if I take 5.9 and I subtract this from 0.221? Okay, how many sig figs that this should have? Well, to me, it looks as if this decimal, this figure contains the fewest decimal point after the decimal. And so I'm just going to draw a line after the fewest decimal point, which happens to be after 9. Okay, this has 3, so I'm going to draw it after 9. Okay, and so when I subtract these, what is that? 5. So I'll get 5.679. Okay, well, notice where my line stops. Okay, so my answer will only in fact be 5. Well, I gotta round up. I'm sorry about that. You gotta be careful. You gotta round up. Okay, so this should be 5.7. Okay, because I have a 7 here. This is a 6. I had to round up, so that will be a 5.7. So be careful. You also have to round up here. It did not matter that my answer was 5. My answer was 5.41 and not 5.42 because this number is actually less than 5. Okay, and so be careful of rounding, but you get the general gist. Okay,